Shri Namaha. Did you know that Shri Madhvacharya has given one of the strongest philosophical arguments for the existence of God? In Tattvasankhyaana, he gives one of the best arguments for the existence of God or a supreme being. Firstly, anything composite is a dependent entity. In other words, every object in the universe that we see around us is a composite entity. It is made up of parts. It is not a whole object by itself. For example, if we take the example of a wall is made up of bricks. The bricks are made up of particles of mud. The mud particles, on the other hand, are made up of more and more particles, and if we go deeper down, they are made up of molecules, and the molecules are made up of atoms. The atoms have subatomic particles. Similarly, in the case of living entities as well, their bodies are made up of organs and tissues, which are again made up of cells, and the cells are made up of molecules and atoms and subatomic particles. So, as shown in the first part of the argument, the whole universe is a composite entity. It is made of parts. All the objects around us are made of parts and parts which combine to give the existence to the objects here. So, it must be asked, on what do all of these ultimately depend upon? Now we cannot suppose that this chain of dependencies that we see is infinite. In other words, A depends on B, B depends on C, C depends on D, and so on. We cannot suppose that this chain goes on infinitely, because if it were true, the property of existence itself does not reach A. So object A that we see here would not exist. In other words, here every object is made up of different parts, and as we go down the chain of dependencies, if the chain is infinite, it is not possible that these objects that we see here can exist at all. We see here that these objects exist, but the property of their existence cannot transgress through infinite dependencies first. So there is one common cause of existence for all these entities in the universe, all the living and non-living entities, all particles that we see here. Sri Jayatirtha, in his commentary on Tattvasankhyaana, elaborates and explains how there is an inevitable requirement of one entity on which everything depends upon, and that entity itself cannot depend upon anything, because again it will lead to the problem of infinite dependencies as explained in the first part of the argument. So, this is the very definition of Parabrahman. For this reason, the Brahma Sutras define Brahman as Janmadyasya Yataha, the cause of the origin and all other actions taking place in this material creation. So in Tattvasankhyaana, Shri Madhvacharya says, Swatantram aswatantram cha dvividam tattvam ishyate. The independent and the dependent. These two entities are accepted to be existing by those guided by proof. Parabrahman is the independent entity, who is Swatantra. His existence does not depend upon anyone else or any other entity. The living entities and all the non-living objects that we see are dependent, aswatantra. They depend upon Paramatma for their existence, and without him they cannot exist at all. So the Shastras say that Parabrahman is Karana Purusha and he himself is Akaranam, which means he himself is causeless. But he is the cause of all causes, Sarva Karana Karanam. This is the strongest argument for the existence of God given by Shri Madhvacharya in Tattvasankhyaana. So Shri Krishna says, Mattaha parataram nanyat kinchit asti dhananjaya mayi sarvam idam protam sutre manigana iva. There is nothing higher than me, Arjuna. Everything rests in me as beads are strung on a thread. Thank you for watching. Shri Krishna Arpanamastu.